Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here. Great to be here with Mark. We both had some adventures getting here, but I'm super glad to be here with all of you. We have 40 minutes that I think are going to fly by. So Mark, appreciate your time.
Great to be here with you, Joe. Yeah,
and
great. And welcome everybody. Good afternoon.
But we're going to talk a lot about electric cars and the car business and semiconductors and all that stuff. But I think before we get into that, Mark, I'd like to ask you about GM's plans for helping businesses that are hit by the pandemic. Last week, Mary Barra announced that GM is going to invest $50 million in Detroit, I think over the next 5 years. Are there other efforts that GM has underway or planned to help businesses in Michigan recover from the pandemic?
There is. I could spend probably 40 minutes talking about some of those, but I'm very passionate about that, and so is Mary and our leadership team. But one of them sticks out here, and it's Neighbor Hub, and it's really a Detroit Chamber collaboration that has been centered around grants with small businesses and growing sort of the business community and providing maybe extra resiliency, especially after the last 18 months or so. So it's really a good initiative, and we've done it over the last year or so, 4 years actually, and we're going to augment that with another $500,000 this year and just keep growing it and committing to that. So I think I'm very, very happy about that, and it's not loans, so it's a grant-based deal to help people get back on their feet and get those businesses back in business. So
they're sort of small grants to smaller businesses.
They are.
That's the target.
They are people of need that are business owners that it's just a nice, really nice thing. So everybody should feel good about that. Good. Yeah.
Thank you. So I promised electric cars. Now we're going to get into electric cars.
Okay.
So, and we're going to take the numbers up a few notches. I think as probably a lot of people in this room know, General Motors has outlined a $35 billion program of investment in electric vehicles through 2025. There's probably more beyond that. Okay. So that's a global effort. I think everybody understands that. But I want to ask you to focus on how those investments are going to land here in Michigan and in the United States. What do you think the shift to electric vehicles by GM, by everybody, all the automakers, is going to mean for suppliers and for the people who depend on GM for their livelihoods? I mean, what do you say to those people about this transition?
Well, I mean, I think we're all talking to a lot of Michigan business people here, and Michigan and Detroit is our home, and it's the epicenter of everything we do. So that's number one. And number two, I would say, we're really looking at a transformation of the industry that is probably won't happen again in our lifetimes, which I feel very fortunate to be in it, number one. But number two, we can't waste that. And so this is growth for General Motors. It's not instead of. And a lot of people think, well, okay, you're going to be all electric. Well, we're going to be all electric, and we're going to be internal combustion engine for a while as well. A lot of those things, as the adoption rate happens, as the infrastructure improves, as the sustainability takes hold, I think there's huge opportunity for everybody, particularly in Michigan, for that. And if you look at some of the things that we've done, putting $2.2 billion into Factory Zero and Hamtramck, for instance, the supply base around that is going to be phenomenal. And that's thousands of jobs, but it's also reviving a part of Detroit that needs to see the light of day again, and a very bright light. And so I think that's what Factory Zero really does. And we're gonna put the Hummer on the road here before Christmas. So the electric Hummer, not the old Hummer, but the electric Hummer.
Right.
And then we'll launch a series of vehicles through that pipeline as well. So very exciting. But I think there's growth and opportunity for everybody that participates around that ecosystem, whether it's small businesses around those locations that we've invested in, or school systems around that, and we're going to help that as well a lot, and we have been. And over the last 10 years, I think we've put $100 million into the philanthropic piece of Detroit. And so you don't do that without having the ecosystem in place and the jobs, and that's what we're focused on.
So today, General Motors makes engines and transmissions, and suppliers produce all sorts of hardware for combustion engines that you buy. What can you say about sort of the future of that kind of product? I mean, what kind of motors, what kinds of transmissions, whatever, are you going to be building? And I'll let you answer that when the follow-up's kind of obvious, is how do companies position to be a part of that?
Yeah, great question. If you think about an electric motor, it's really a central part of the propulsion system, different than a transmission, but the job it does is similar in actually converting the energy to kinetic energy through the tires and wheels. So that's similar. And I would say, if you go down to our Toledo transmission plant and you look at what they're getting ready to make, which is, one of our, 3 new electric motors that we've done in-house.
Okay.
And then the software control piece of that, I'm announcing that today, by the way, which is great. But those plants and that opportunity is massive. And what that really means to the workforce is massive as well. Those were all done in Southeast Michigan. The power control systems for those, the integration of those into our vehicles. And then, throughout the Midwest, you look at the castings out of Defiance, the assembly in Toledo. Our factories will see pieces of those start to happen as those 3 motors are the new basis of our Ultium products. And, our propulsion engineers that have done, electric motors and the control systems for those for over 20 years are joined now from, our new workforce that is being hired in. And I'd say 60% of our technical workforce has 5 years or less. And then we have the propulsion engineers that used to do transmissions coming in to join forces with them to create something completely new, completely innovative, with the experience of the past and the new minds of the future. So it's really a neat thing.
So let me just pursue that a little bit. So, I mean, General Motors' footprint in North America has been heavily centered in Michigan and surrounding states. I mean, obviously you've got plants in lots of places in the country, and I know you also have operations elsewhere, such as China, but let's just talk about North America. I mean, as you're looking at the footprint that GM has, and as you transition to electric products, does the footprint stay the same, or do you say, oh, this is great, now we can greenfield all this stuff and kind of get out of legacy issues that we may have? I'm just sort of wondering what the mindset is at General Motors about where you land these investments and how.
Well, I think you could look at a legacy footprint a couple different ways. One way is you're saddled with a footprint that is 100 years old that isn't full of capacity, or capacitized fully. Or you could say, our capacity is our advantage, our competitive advantage. And so, you look at where the bolt's made in Orion, what we do there is very important because when we think about all different types of electrification, we've got a plant there that's been there since the mid-'80s that is a duplicate of Hamtramck and Wentzville. And Wentzville's overfull. Hamtramck is going to be full at Factory Zero. Mm-hmm. And so we have some of these places that we can do lots of really good things. And the startups or the new people into electric vehicles that don't have any plants are looking for plants. And so you got to capitalize those plants, right? And that's a big bill. And so they can do it provided they have the right SPAC or whatever they're doing to capitalize that. We don't have to do that. So we can be very fast, incredibly fast, as a matter of fact. And we can do things like at Lordstown, Ohio, where we used to make small cars. I went through that plant, the Ultium plant down there. It is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's one of the coolest things that I've been around a while. I'm old, okay, I get all that. But this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen, okay? It really is. And so we're doing that in Spring Hill, too, where we're doing an adjunct, plant for Ultium right next to where we're going to build the Lyric, to the assembly plant. So, we're going to do all that. We're going to do a few greenfields like Ultium in Lordstown, but that's still the site that we had our small. So it's a hybrid, I got to say, and I think of that as our competitive advantage.
But you do see, I mean, some of the newer companies are putting factories in Arizona, Oklahoma, whatever. What I've just heard you saying is that's not the plan going in, is to change the footprint of General Motors.
No, unless we have to. And so, we're always flexible enough to take a look at that and say, okay, I wouldn't say that plan is forever or it's static. This is a living plan, and we don't know precisely the adoption. We don't know precisely what happens here in terms of even the federal infrastructure plan on the details of that. But we planned for this 3 years ago. We said we're going all in EV. We're not going to do hybrids. We're not going to do a bunch of things that take our focus from an investment standpoint onto what we know the future really is. And by the way, EVs are a ton of fun to drive. So, I totally believe in that. So, and 10 years ago, by the way, here, we talked about EVs and AVs, and people thought I was, crazy. But we're coming. So, yeah, 30 models by 2025.
So, actually quickly on that, I was thinking about this on the way here. How long do you figure we're going to have a world of EVs and internal combustion? How many? You look at Flint, where you build your heavy-duty pickup trucks.
Right. And a lot of engines, by the way.
And a lot of engines,
right.
right. So first of all, for the people of Flint, that's super important. Second of all, right now, those vehicles make a ton of money for General Motors. But as you look at that, how long does that tail last?
I think that tail lasts a while with heavy-duty trucks and some of our regular internal combustion engine trucks. I do. And when I say a while, I can't say it's exactly 10 years or 5 years. I can't say that. But I can say that the people who buy and use heavy-duty trucks to make a living, or a business that use heavy-duty trucks for their business, the fleets, and then the personal piece of a tradesman, actually a tradesperson, I should say, which is very true. But I would say that has a tail on it that I don't know their precise business plans. But I can say when they buy one of those, the average age of a car right now is about 11 and a half years, give or take. And so, we build those for people to use them for a while, and we sell the parts for people to use them for a while. So, there's some tails on this stuff, serious tails, which is great.
So, I want to come back to a point that I think you're making in what you just said about the footprint and the supply. So, you need to retrain your workers. Maybe I don't say you need, but it seems like you need to retrain your workforce to some degree.
We do.
And you also, I would say, or ask, do you also need to retrain suppliers? Or do you say, no, never mind, we're going to go with someone who knows how to make permanent magnets? But is that something that General Motors invests in, the retraining of both suppliers and of the people?
We do. We invest a lot in our suppliers today, and it's really about some of our quality systems, and then some of the new technology that we put into production comes right out of the supply base. So how do you calibrate Super Cruise or the sensors of Super Cruise before they come into a car plant, and we have to integrate it and then calibrate the car? We got to train our workforce to calibrate the car. We got to train our suppliers, and they have to train us on what their capability is on the sensor farms and the things that lead to that. So it's a really big give and take. But I got to say, our supply base in the auto industry, and you've seen it through COVID, and you've seen it through the chip shortage, is I believe the best in the world on an industry basis. And so I don't think that changes.
So you mentioned the Bolt, and so the good news for this discussion is that just the other day, because yesterday, General Motors announced that production of batteries to replace potentially defective ones in Bolts is happening. There's a line of sight to fixing that. But I want to ask you about this, which is a lot of people in this room, or some people in this room, have remembered that some technology shifts in this industry don't go all that well. And I've certainly heard union people talk about that in the context of their concerns about this move, and you have too, I know. But what lessons has General Motors learned from this Bolt recall, and so the process of tracking down the defects in the batteries, lessons that you can apply in the future? I mean, is there any bright side to this from the point of view of exercising muscles in the company to deal with these kinds of issues?
Yeah, that's a great question, and hugely insightful, because this business is not easy, and so it's complex, it's dynamic. You have to be agile, number one, and number two, there are going to be things that happen that are somewhat new or very new in this case around production of battery electric vehicle cells. So the cells and our partner LG, we have worked extremely hard over the last 2 months. In fact, when I look into the eyes of our teams that have solved the problem, you see fatigue and you see a lot of care, and you see a lot of expertise. And we have something called the Red X team, which is our sort of our Green Berets, if you will, on problem solving. And so when you have a situation like a battery cell that has an intermittent shorting sequence that isn't predictable, it becomes very difficult to pinpoint the problem on a repeated basis, if that makes sense. I'm trying to keep it here at a relatively high level. And so when you look at that and you can then pick up the patterns, you can see where it's actually happening, you can actually detect in the process where it's happening. That's what they did. And I couldn't be more proud of them. And I got to say, the effort was extraordinary. And that effort was all centered around the customer. And so we can't miss with a solution on something like this. We can't miss and be close enough. That can't happen for our customers. So, we've got it diagnosed, we've got the fix, we've got the diagnostic, by the way, which is a incredibly powerful software diagnostic. And we're going to return people to normal use here as fast as we can. And our cell plants are running, both Hazel Park and Holland. Our battery pack is now running again. Our pack plants are running again. And I was down in Brownstown at our Ultium pack facility as we get ready to produce Hummer and Lyric, which is a different battery and system than what we have on the Bolt. But I got to say, we are going to be much stronger from a capability and what we deliver the customer. We're going to be much stronger for this. So, you got to use these opportunities to really learn. And I can tell you that I feel good about that. I really do. I feel good about what we're going to put into production very shortly on the Hummer and then the Lyric. And we've taken all of this and really done the due diligence and taken our time as fast as we could to protect the customer and get it dialed in and get it right.
Is that something, are the processes and that you've exercised to deal with this problem, are those things that you spread to the supply base? Because, ultimately, you've got to believe that a supplier says when, talk about that. How do you spread that out so that you don't get bad parts, basically?
Well, in the case of the Bolt and LG, LG made our cells and our packs. So that is a supplier to GM. And so we're in that together. We still are in that together. We have a very strong technical basis that we've developed, and it's a two-way trust street. And I would say that's the same way with any supplier. If we have a problem or we need to do something, those lessons learned over whatever period of time, either from the supplier to General Motors or from General Motors to the supplier, because we've seen it before, those process controls go both ways. But the supplier quality piece of this is at a very high level, a level higher than what I've seen in many, many years. And people are incentivized for quality. They are accountable for quality. And I think Steve Kiefer may be in the room, but Steve Kiefer really put that system in place. And I can tell you, everybody benefits from that. There's no waste. There's no customer care that has to do with that. And we all emerge much stronger. So that's the approach, philosophically.
So let me ask you about another supply problem that you've got, that everybody in the industry has, that probably, again, I'm sure everybody in the room knows this. So obviously, supply chain generally, but semiconductors specifically, have caused a lot of disruption throughout the company, throughout the industry. I'd like to ask, what is your outlook now? And my question, because I've seen there's a variety of outlooks, including a fairly pessimistic one that these problems last all through next year and into 2023. But near term, is there a situation where you maybe don't have all the chips coming in that you would like, but you would have stability? Or do you foresee that we're going to have both shortages and volatility? Because it seems like right now, or certainly in the last few months, you've had both. volatility and shortages and plants popping up
Plus
and
a
down.
pandemic, plus a...
Plus a pandemic. We'll get to that. Let's not
Okay,
rush.
all
But I just wanted to sort of get your take on kind of those.
Well, I think a little bit of that's intertwined, particularly the pandemic piece of it, but we'll talk about more. But I would say some of the supply of chips are in places where the vaccination rates are very low. So you'll see a spotty stop-start of those supplies. So, I mean, that's the way that is. And,
Malaysia, right?
Yeah, for sure. And Vietnam, I mean,
Vietnam.
Yeah, there's a whole host of them, but so there's some volatility there. So, we really need to get the vaccination and protocol into those plants, which we're working very hard on, both from, I believe at a federal level and then from an industry level on how, because we have made cars through the pandemic until we hit the chip shortage piece of it. So we know how to induce the protocol into our assembly plants where there's zero transmission within people across making cars and trucks. So we know how to do that. And so, that's what we have to try and get in there to do it. But I would say to your question, we're going to see a stabilization to some extent before we see, getting the volume that we really need. And that makes a lot of sense to me. However, I would say, don't forget what we had before this, which is the other topic, which is, a super pandemic that shut down the whole industry. And so we've got an inventory hole that then got exacerbated by, the chip shortage. So are we going to be at stable inventories where we have, what we want on a day supply basis across the industry and our dealerships? The answer is no, because there's two holes, right? There's the chip hole, there's the pandemic hole. When you look at that thing across all the industry, it's pretty tough. So I think the question is, do we have enough chips to make? That'll come before an industry stabilization of, supply to meet the demand.
So again, this is a what have you learned question. So as you're looking now into the supply chain, I think Mary has said this, I think you said this, deeper than ever before. What's next? As you look out, what are the risks beyond chips or the next thing after chips where you say, uh-oh? I mean, I don't know if it's lithium, if it's labor, if it's something to do with batteries, but are you now kind of doing new things to try to figure out what's the next trap I'm going to put my foot in?
Yeah, I think we are. And in fact, I know we are because we spend a lot of time on it. So, but I would say, aside from another pandemic, which I think that risk, whether you believe that can happen or not, I believe it can. And so, I don't see, I see mitigation on a vaccine basis throughout our country and the world of some mitigation of the vaccine for this pandemic, but I don't have enough information to say we wouldn't have another one. And I don't know when, I don't know any of that stuff, but some of our former presidents called that as a major risk too, prior. And so I still think that's a major risk. And so that's one of them. But I would also say that if you look at how the industry converts to a rare earth metal-like, harvesting for cells and EVs, I think the recyclability of the material is one of our number one priorities, and we've made some really good progress on that. So whereas discarding that can be very expensive and really wasteful, I think there's a lot of material in a battery cell that can be reused. And so there's a whole growth industry around doing that, which I think is incredibly fascinating and very exciting. So we're spending time on that. And that relieves some of the new use of mining those materials. And I'd also say, on a chemistry standpoint, we're looking at, in fact, we're doing a 70% reduction on cobalt in our chemistry. So look for more of that without giving away the story.
No, do tell, please.
But as we step through this over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see big changes in battery chemistry that relieve that pressure. But for now, I think that supply chain is incredibly important, and we shouldn't underestimate that risk on a geopolitical basis.
So just another beat on this. So, I mean, I wonder if it does seem like there's kind of an analog to the old, let's be, independent in terms of oil, energy independence from the 70s and 80s, that debate. Kind of being updated to let's be independent of China in particular on battery electric vehicle materials and technology. You operate in China, you know China well. Is that realistic, or what is the right posture that U.S. businesses should have toward a dependence on China for electric vehicle commodities and technology?
I think there's a huge opportunity in the United States to be our own, and whether that happens today or tomorrow, we're doing, without giving away, some other announcements, we are looking at Australia for one. We're looking at inside the United States in harvesting lake beds out in the west part of the United States, which we're actually doing. So there's a lot of opportunities to create something out of nothing, I should say. Is it possible tomorrow? Not probably as the demand grows for EVs, but I think we have to start right now.
Is this something that General Motors invests in with its own capital, or do you count on somebody else to do it for you?
On which front?
Any of it.
Any of it?
Materials. I mean, the lake beds, Australia.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that.
I think I'm not sure it's only our capital. There's a lot of different business models for doing that, Joe, and so there are probably as many different companies as there are different business models.
Well, there are startups out there and that are trying to do this sort of thing.
There you go.
Just on that, I mean, I know that Pam Fletcher is, among others, is kind of scouting the horizon for startups.
Alan Wexler.
Alan Wexler.
Yeah.
How important is that?
Wade Scheffler and Ventures.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can name them all.
Yeah.
But the point is that activity seems like it's more critical to General Motors now than it would have been, say, 20 years ago.
That's a great observation, and it is. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's critical.
How does somebody get on your radar?
I always like to say great ideas can come from anywhere, and I've seen it, and I believe that. So we follow up on just about everything that people ask us to take a look at.
And you've named 3 people who they can.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're usually involved with them on just about every one. So it's good.
So you've alluded to the pandemic a couple of times, obviously, and very appropriately. The auto industry restarted basically in May of 2020 after the cold shutdown. And as far as I know, the industry has had a pretty good track record since then of operating safely. I'm sure it's not perfect, but it seems like it's pretty good.
Pretty good.
And so first of all, talk about that and what has been critical, both in terms of people's behavior and protocols, but in maybe some other aspects about making that happen.
Yeah, I think I can remember this, but when we're looking at plant shutdowns across our company, as well as everybody else was too, but we said how quickly can we pivot to helping, and so we did the ventilator project where we did 30,000. We learned how to make ventilators, which was I never thought I'd be doing that, but we did, and it was great, and we converted a facility in Kokomo, Indiana, to do it, which was awesome. That was highly motivational for us because we call it ventilator speed. All right, so we did that in less than a month, and so we applied that to masks. We applied it to hand sanitizer. We went across and selected sites where we were going to do that, not only for ourselves and our employees, but for the communities and the places where we worked, and we did. That, along with the protocol of it primarily being an airborne transmissed disease or pandemic, really was the enlightenment of our Dr. Jeff Hess, our corporate doctor. Mm-hmm. And so we put immediately into place the temperature, the mask, the sanitizer at all of our facilities, instantly. And then Mary and I and Gerald Johnson and Phil Kinley went out and we visited every plant and went through the protocol that they're doing in each one of these plants to make sure people knew, number one, that we thought it was safe enough to go into these plants and be with them, but also experience the standardized work across there. And that was extremely important. And I can say that we really didn't have any disease across those protocols in our plants. Now, people go outside and they do things, but we generally caught it before it came into the plant, And it was not, even if it was in the plant, it didn't get, passed. And that's a big deal. And so we actually took our playbook and let schools use it. And then we let, the Mexican government, from an industry standpoint, have access to it to do it. And so we passed it, in a lot of places. So, I'm very proud of that. I'm also very proud that we could help our country.
So, unfortunately, the pandemic is not making this easy for you. Now we have the Delta variant, and there's this sustaining this over time. And as you look at that prospect, is it good enough to keep just doing what you're doing, or do you now look at this and say, we're going to have to sustain this over time? We have to do more, and if so, what would more be?
It is something we're looking at over time because, I go to work and I wear a mask too. I mean, everybody does, right? So, I mean, for me, personally, it's where we're at. It's nothing more, it's nothing less. That's where we're at. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to do it. And I think the vaccination piece of this is so critical. And so, relative to the President Biden's, mask mandate, we just want to encourage our employees to get vaccinated. That's what we're all about. And so that's more in that sense. But I think there's some pretty innovative things being developed in pretty amazing industries around how to protect an environment and surface relative to disease. So, I think I know enough to be dangerous about that, but I'm hopeful. I think those are really good things that can handle it more than just COVID-19.
So General Motors obviously would be subject, if the president's proposal of a vaccine mandate for companies over 100 employees. Where are you on that? And where are you and the other two companies and the union, which you're all working in concert, as I understand, on this?
Yeah, we are.
Can you talk about that, and can you talk about why it isn't just happening right now? Because I'm sure there's reasons why it's not just happening right now.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one. Okay, I just don't, and I don't know exactly the details that they're gonna. We've heard like pieces of it.
Yeah, I'm talking about that, but I also was asking within your own houses.
Yeah.
Just say, this is what we're going to do. What are the complications?
What are we doing?
Well, yeah, but why not just have a vaccine mandate within the unionized companies?
Yeah, we're trying. I mean, we're a large company. We've got a lot of different kinds of employees that have lots of different problems or challenges in life, and so we're trying to be very respectful of that. And we have this thing called lives, then livelihoods. And so you look at those two things together because we got to protect people's lives and we have to protect their livelihoods. That's what we're trying to do. And so we're trying to be respectful of many different kinds of people that may have health issues or for some reason can't do it, okay? And we don't want fear in our workplace. We do not want fear. And so that's where we are right now. And so, that can change depending on what, the law is or what the federal government actually says you have to do. We'll obviously do that, but that's where we are today.
Okay. One or two more questions because we're getting close to time. And I want to do something that I try not to do when I write a story, which is circle back to a point.
Okay.
But I'm going to circle back to a point.
I know you well enough that I've seen this tactic before, so go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm not changing my answer, whatever it is.
No. I'll try to ask you a different question.
Sure.
I kind of skipped by, I think, an important point about software. And I want you to talk about it. So increasingly, the value of a vehicle is software, and you alluded to it before, the software for these propulsion systems, the electric propulsion systems coming in-house. But I want to sort of get you to talk more about that. I mean, as an auto company becomes a software company that happens to make, amazing hardware, heavily regulated amazing hardware, unlike certain other industries.
Right.
But as you become a software company, talk about what that means in terms of the workforce. I mean, do you basically have to just roll the workforce, or do you retrain your workforce? Just I'm just interested in kind of how that value shift affects the way you do business and,
Okay.
and your people. And the
Yeah,
people.
absolutely. I'll talk about like philosophically what we're doing, at least what GM's doing here. We have been a hardware-based company that has electrical systems on board, and increasingly those mechanical systems have been operated by electrical systems like electric power steering or brakes or whatever over time. That is the basis to create software for the future growth of the company. And so we have to make cars like the Lyric, that is sort of off the charts in terms of, the desirability. And we have to deliver things that people don't even know they want yet in terms of connectivity software and, what it does to make your life easier, but also how it makes you feel when you drive that car. And so that basis, and we're pretty good at that, but our growth platform really is the platform of software on top of the hardware. And so when I talk about that, it's our Vehicle Intelligence Platform 2.0, which is about 10 times faster than what we used to have in the old days of what its capability and capacity is. And that capability and capacity is linked to the cloud. That cloud is going to deliver things that you want faster and better than anybody else. And so that growth piece of it becomes really important because it's margin and total addressable market that is beyond just the hardware piece of it. But we can't get to that opportunity and growth until we have cars that people want to buy, okay? So that fundamentally has to be in place. And then we can deliver things that are just sort of out of this world, right? That people don't even know they want. And so the software employee piece of that is really important because we get, we've hired more people in 2020, first half of 2021 than we did all in 2020 put together. So those people and those younger people and experienced people that want to be part of the revolution, the revolution of what this transformation looks like, are coming to our company to do it. And so that is really different than, I'm not going into automotive because automotive is this, this, and this. This is automotive, and it's the platform that delivers the software that happens to be the car. And so when you talk to a tech company or a software company, they talk about the platform that's going to deliver iOS, or what iOS delivers to the customer, or what Android delivers to the customer. What does General Motors cars deliver to the customer? And so that's the way we think about it, and that's very exciting to a lot of people that probably wouldn't have thought about automotive in the past.
It's also, it's answer, I mean, again, a few years ago, the whole wrap on electric cars was, well, the batteries are $10,000 or $15,000. Yep. There's no margin in it. It's a dead end for the legacy auto industry or the established auto industry. This sounds like the answer to that.
It is.
The software services piece of it.
It is, and we have to stop looking at what the car delivers on a hardware basis and look at what the car delivers over the total addressable market of the stickiness of a customer that is loyal, that loves everything about that car, including the design and how it performs and how it's integrated. But also, I want General Motors because General Motors has OnStar for my kids. It has, this, this, and this, all of that, right? And it delivers it, and I love it, and I don't want to leave it.
Well, Mark, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to leave a placeholder for finding out a couple of the things that you left on the table here.
Very good. I expect nothing less.
Including why General Motors has interest in dry lake beds in the western United States.
That's right.
I'm going to give you and our audience back a minute of their time. Thank you so much. Have a great conference, everyone.
Thank you.